Peace, everyone. This is Rhetoric. My name is Vinyl, and standing to the right of me is fashion designer, innovator, the man does it all, Mr. Jay Kos. So Jay, I mean, been in the industry for over 20 years. I want to say maybe 28 to be exact.
Yeah,
maybe
somewhere around 20.
somewhere around there.
Yeah.
You know, and I always felt like, you know, you managed to just always be a trailblazer. You know, kind of just always doing your own thing, moving at the beat of your own drum. You know, even, you know, having a store, you know, on the Upper East Side and being down the block from like the Polo Mansion, right? Mm-hmm. And then now being located in Soho and like pretty much engulfed in like the fashion capital, you know? So I always felt like even with all this stuff going on, you still managed to kind of just feel like, you know what, I'm not essentially moving in that direction. I mean, is that intentional?
You know, I think, everything I do is intentional, but not maybe, it's not consciously like trying to be different. I'm not trying to be different than what's out there. I'm not trying to be mimicking or not mimicking the luxury brands out there. I think actually it's almost the reverse. They are more so trying to like fit into a box. Like what you see when you come into any of my stores is me. I don't design for anyone but myself.
Like far as like your inspiration, like where does that tie in?
I'm inspired. I think I would think most creators are just inspired. So whether it's history sometimes would inspire me, nature, food, cooking, all those things. But I think that a creative person just kind of, first let me say that I think everyone's creative. I just think that not everyone accesses their creativity. But for someone that accesses their creativity, I think that's just, it's the way we look at everything. You know, there's that expression, they say people look, through glasses with rose-colored lenses. I just think our visual is different when you access your creativity. So wherever it is, whether I'm walking through the souk in Morocco or I'm walking through Union Square Farmers Market, subconsciously colors, people, energy just like kind of like flows into my brain, and it's like almost like a assembly line, and it just like kind of goes through my body somehow and then comes out into a jacket. And I think that's how, I would assume that's how most real creatives create.
You know, I felt like, you know, with the brand in the beginning, and even as far as with your personal aesthetics, like if you look back at like certain photos and stuff like that, I felt like, you know, you was very suit, dapper, you know, and then now moving forward, I feel like you evolved, you know, into, a different style, you know, like walk me through that, like as far as like your mental and just wanting to make that change, into evolution.
I get a lot of people that say that, for me, the brand's never really changed. Mm-hmm. I think I like to say that it's not that I've changed, it's that maybe you have stayed the same. And I feel like, you know, back then that was where I was, both mentally, physically. Maybe that's at that time how I thought of fashion, how I thought of clothing. Maybe back then I sort of tied myself to a little bit of safety, maybe not, I don't know. I mean, at that point I was doing colored corduroys in like pink and purple and orange. Before anybody was doing that in New York, I had like every color corduroy. And people used to make fun of them back then. You know, now it's pretty normal, but I think I just, my style, not only on a decades basis, but on even a daily basis, changes with my mood and my energy. So it just kind of flows with me. none of it was intentional. I've never like intentionally said, okay, I'm going to change, but I've also never intentionally said, okay, you can't do that because that's not Jay Kos or that's not your style. I don't, I think everyone has a style, their own personal style, but that doesn't necessarily translate to what you wear. I think it's more translated how you wear it. The collection has always stayed the same. I mean, like I have a secret sauce, and my secret sauce has always been quality. I've always been into very traditional cuts, like from a very soft shoulder to a high armhole on a jacket. I've always had quality, cut, color, fit. That's my formula. Okay, so maybe one year it was corduroy and the next year it's alligator. But the bones have not changed ever.
It reads that, even throughout the time, just being a fan of your work and just, like seeing the evolution of just the garments and stuff like that. And I just remembered just the days of when you had the shop, on the Upper East Side, and then like when you made the change to, I wouldn't say drastic, but, definitely it was a left field move coming down into Soho. I mean, what was like where was your mental at in that moment of like deciding like, listen, you know what, I'm going to, move from the Upper East Side and then make this transition down here to Soho?
When I first was on the Upper East Side, I guess you could say there was a preppier angle to my brand. Those were the years of like Puffy and Andre 3000 and like one of my best friends, Farnsworth Bentley, who originally brought Puffy in. And that was the thing then. That was the shit, to be kind of preppy and wear a bow tie, a boater hat, and so I loved it. It was fun. As I became more confident in my brand and more confident in my design, I felt the Upper East Side to be very sort of like it was a place where you celebrate sameness, almost like a suburb. Right. Which why I've never could live in a suburb. They celebrate, sameness. And as I wanted to be more creative with my designs, my fabrics, and my colors, I realized that probably up there wasn't the greatest option. And so that was probably what initially kind of kicked off the move.
Yeah, I mean, I clearly, can see that you definitely experiment and play with, these different fabrics. And, of course, knowing that, like, these fabrics definitely are rare. So with, it being rare, also there's a certain, like, price tag to it. Considering with, like, Gucci or, like, Louis Vuitton, right? They have these price points, right? But you necessarily don't understand why it's priced at this certain point. You ever feel like, kind of in competition with that in a way, or just like, no, like, what I'm doing, my price, like this, I'm firm to this, like, do you stand on that? Or
yeah, well, one, I think for Louis Vuitton and Gucci, there probably is a little bit of a sweet spot of where they can't go over or under a certain thing, but generally their price point in a way is insignificant. Meaning, like, we've seen this with the sneaker culture. Right. People are buying sneakers for $100,000,
yeah,
$200,000. A bag from whether it's Hermes or Louis Vuitton or Gucci, like, the price is almost insignificant. They're not buying the bag, and they're not buying the sneaker, and they're not buying the jacket from those brands. They're buying something else. They're clearly buying the image. Because if you were to say to somebody like, okay, this Louis Vuitton bag is, I don't know, let's say it's $5,000, and you told them you could make the same bag, but way better quality, way nicer materials, completely handmade, not anything machined, for half the price, people don't want it. So they're clearly buying something else. With the way I design and create, I don't have that broad audience of just, we want it just because it's Jay Kos. People want it people that buy this brand are buying my eye, they're buying my taste, they're buying my passion, and they're buying that end result. They want to have something that they consider beautiful. We were talking earlier, you know, the word beauty and the word quality has been replaced in the last 20 years by hype. And hype is the new beauty. The consumer doesn't really know this. They think that they're buying something because they think it's beautiful. Most people that buy my product, or like a jacket, it's not like in 20 years they're like, oh, I can't wear this shit anymore. But people do that with the big luxury brands. They don't want it anymore. It becomes a piece that nobody wants. Whether that's a sneaker or, you know, you see it in sneakers. It's crazy. Like 1 second it's all about Yeezy. Now it's all about Jordans. And that shows that they're buying something else. I don't hate on it at all. I don't look down at it even. It's just a different model. So I don't look at them back to the price point and worry about my price point versus their price point. We're expensive. If anyone were to follow me a day in the life of a jacket, it's not what people think it is.
I think one of the things that really was appealing to me, or that stood out to me, is, well, during the pandemic, right? You see all these shops like closing down, right? And yet, you know, yours was, you know, still around, you know, and you know, that spoke volume to me. You know, you have all these maybe larger scale, you know, to sell to a larger audience, but yet, you know, they're losing their vacancy, you know what I mean? Like they're, you know, of their store, you know, the brand is closing down and stuff like that. I mean, you know, throughout that time of the pandemic, I mean, like, where was your mindset at, and what did you see for the brand?
I mean, I really was more spiritual at that time. I was very angry at that time, very angry at the media. I was very angry at the fear that the media was putting into people. And so plus my store was completely emptied during the riots, and I just felt, you know, a little bit suffocated by society and where things were going. But at the same time, I really loved more and more what I do, and more to create. And so I think my mind was more on what's going to happen after, and in the meantime, I'm just going to continue to create. I also got, I think, a little bit more verbal on social media, which is not generally my angle. And it wasn't an angle. It's just not me to be so. I can be very closed and I can be very open, and I'm usually very closed.
Which I love, by the way, that you show this other side of you.
Yeah, I showed a different side that I usually am more less inclined to show. And so, but I never stopped, you know, designing, and I never stopped wanting to create and design.
You know, I know like some of your inspiration also comes through food, right? And, you know, if you know, if people do not know, you also are a chef. You know, so like walk me through that. Like, what's the correlation between, you know, food and fashion, and how do you, I guess, take what's in your mind and then create a reality into a piece?
I never cooked from recipes, and it's sort of the same exact way I design. I cook, you know, from just like, I sort of taste the ingredients. I have this weird thing where I can sort of like taste the ingredients and the pairings without tasting them. And so that's how I would always cook. And traveling to the places that I traveled, whether it was, you know, throughout Europe or you know, Morocco, the simplicity of ingredients and the rules around the simplicity of the ingredients is, I guess, just like it goes very in line with my personality, and that's sort of like the same way as I design. I don't design for shock value. Right. I like balance in the design. So if I'm using something like purple alligator, it has to be balanced with fit and cut. And that's not even, that's not something that is like, I don't want to say like consciously intentional, just is the way I design. And it's the same way with food. Like here in America, I find like you go to an Italian restaurant, of what they call Italian restaurant, and they put like oregano in the tomato sauce, and like you would never see that in Italy. And that's why in Italy it's just like it's 3 simple ingredients, and sometimes simple ingredients in food and in clothing is what makes the difference between good and great.
And it's, of course, throughout time you kind of acquire, a taste and you evolve. But I want to backtrack a little bit and just go back to like the younger you. I read at one point like one of your favorite pieces, or piece that you fell in love with from the beginning, was like this Averex jacket, cream, like cream sleeves, green,
brown sleeves, green jacket,
right,
canvas jacket,
like
a varsity jacket.
Walk me through that, Jay, in that time, and like, did you even think like moving now years later, like, man, this where you would be at?
I do remember escaping what I considered Sameville again. Like I grew up in a suburb where everyone was exactly the same. And I think my expression of all of that came out in my creativity. So I always had like my own style.
How important is that to you, like to have that individuality?
I mean, it's not that it's important in the sense of again, like intention. Like it just is who I am.
But also go back to like just the individuality, right? You'll have I guess people that come in and ask you like kind of to create a style for them. And I know one of your sayings, you're big on saying like we don't create style, right? Like where does that come from? Like what's
just that, because I think everyone has style,
right?
Everyone. And I can't sell you style. We don't sell style. No one sells style.
Right.
And a proof of that is you can find whether it's a girl or a guy that's walked into Louis Vuitton, bought the bag and the belt, and then they walked into Gucci and got the Gucci sweatpants, and then they walk into Yeezy and get the Yeezy sneakers, and they're head to toe brand.
Right.
So-called style. Nobody's looking at them and be like, oh wow, they got style. Style and like, the actual clothing are 2 completely different things. I always use the example of like Brad Pitt and Johnny Depp. Like Brad Pitt, I always thought of like, I never really looked at him as someone that has style. Like they dress him in nice things for red carpet, and they dress him in nice things for his events, but I don't look at him as like style. But he's well dressed in the idea of what is well dressed. And then you take someone like Johnny Depp, that's head to toe vintage most of the time, kind of a slob, not particularly well dressed, but the guy's got style. You can't deny it. And so that for me is the proof that style is one thing and dress is another.
So just within all this time, right, Jay, just like you acquiring all these years now, it's like, what's next for you? Like, what do you, like, do you still wake up still with a hunger of like, man, there's so much more to do? Or you feel like you're in a place of like, yeah, I'm pretty content of like how things are moving? Like, what is that next thing for you?
I mean, for me, always the next thing is tomorrow. It's like I just want to get better at my craft. I want to get more inspired daily by my daily life and keep designing. I do want to reach more people, not just from a financial standpoint, but just from an expression standpoint. Like I like my creativity to be heard and to be appreciated, hated, loved, liked, not liked, I don't care. And that's something that, I think just organically happens with continuing to love what I do and putting the work in. Something that I don't think is really taught. Nothing is overnight.
Right.
There's no such thing. It takes time. And I've been doing this for 28 years, and It's like every day I would wonder how I made it from yesterday and how I'm going to make it tomorrow. And just keep on that path of producing what I love to produce.
So Jay, when it's all said and done, right? When you leave this world, right? What would you want people to remember you as, or for what you have done in this world?
I've never thought of that. I think that all I really think about when I leave this earth is that the people that I love are okay and that they can take care of themselves. My wife and my children. I never really thought about my legacy, only because I've never felt any more important than anyone that would be considered below me or above me. So it's a hard question for me to answer. I, again, create for me, and I love creating for me, and so when I'm gone, probably that dream and energy around it will be what it is to everyone else, but for me, it's hard for me to kind of want any sort of recognition or feelings around it.
I mean, I'll leave it at that. Well, Jay, I feel like I need to embody the Jay Kos experience, right? So me, typically, I'm usually all in black. Most of the time, if it's not black, then it's white. I feel like my style is
and always a color, you have the
yellow. Yeah. It's always a pop of color. But for the most part, minimalist, for the most part, But recently feeling like I want to kind of just spice it up, whatever, and do something a little bit different. So could you help me with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so to help me today, kind of just switch up the wares, we have Brooklyn's own and fashion stylist Dom Alexander.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course. So pretty much, Jay, Dom, I feel like, what I do is pretty basic, but I feel like in this moment now, I feel like I need to do something just, I guess, a little different, Season is changing, I kind of want to be on pace of that. So if you can, the two of you, please, help me.
Absolutely.
We got you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, there you have it. As you can see, out of my comfort into some color. I actually really do like it, and it does really something to my energy right now. But I love this. I like this. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Maybe you'll wear color more often.
Maybe possibility, a possibility, But yeah, I definitely feel good in this, and I definitely think this is beautiful. Jay, you have some amazing pieces, and man, I just love your work.
Thank you.
And Dom, thank you for assisting. I mean, I could not do this by myself at all. So thank you both. So all right, this is Rhetoric, and we're signing out. Dom, thank you again. Jay,
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's it.